Welcome to the Natural Resources Committee. I'm Senator Tom Brandt from Plymouth, representing the 32nd Legislative District, and I serve as chair of the committee. The committee will take up the bills in the order posted. This public hearing is your opportunity to be part of the legislative process and to express your position on the proposed legislation before us. If you're planning to testify today, please fill out one of the green testifier sheets that are on the table at the back of the room. Be sure to print clearly and fill it out completely. When it is your turn to come forward to testify, give the testifier sheet to the page or to the committee clerk. If you do not wish to testify but would like to indicate your position on a bill, there are also yellow sign-in sheets back on the table for each bill. These sheets will be included as an exhibit in the official hearing record. When you come up to testify, please speak clearly into the microphone. Tell us your name and spell your first and last name and ensure we get an accurate record. We will begin the bill hearing today with the introducer's opening statement, followed by proponents of the bill, then opponents, and finally by anyone speaking in the neutral capacity. We will finish with a closing statement by the introducer if they wish to give one. We will be using a 5-minute light system for all testifiers. When you begin your testimony, the light on the table will be green. When the yellow light comes on, you have 1 minute remaining, and the red light indicates you need to wrap up your final thought and stop. Questions from the committee may follow. Also, committee members may come and go during the hearing. This has nothing to do with the importance of the bills being heard. It is just part of the process, as senators may have bills to introduce in other committees. A few final items to facilitate today's hearing. If you have handouts or copies of your testimony, please bring up at least 12 copies and give them to the page. Please silence or turn off your cell phones. Verbal outbursts or applause are not permitted in the hearing room. Such behavior may be cause for you to be asked to leave the hearing. Finally, committee procedures for all committees state that written position comments on a bill to be included in the record must be submitted by 8 a.m. the day of the hearing. The only acceptable method of submission is via the legislature's website at nebraskalegislature.gov. Written position letters will be included in the official hearing record, but only those testifying in person before the committee will be included on the committee statement. I will now have the committee members with us today introduce themselves, starting on my left.
Good afternoon, Stan Klaus, District 37, Shelton, Gibbon, Kearney, and Buffalo County.
Hello, Barry DeKay, representing District 40, which consists of Holt, Knox, Cedar, Antelope, northern part of Dixon, northern part of Pierce counties.
Mike Moser, District 22, Platte County, and most of Stanton County.
Jane Raybold, Legislative District 28, which is Central Lincoln.
Shanna Hughes, District 24, Seward, York, Polk, and a little bit of Butler County.
Senator Margot Juarez, South Omaha, District 5.
Okay, also assisting the committee today to my right is our legal counsel, Cindy Lamb, and on my far left is our committee clerk, Sally Schultz. Our pages will introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Maddie. I'm a sophomore at the University of Nebraska Lincoln, and I'm studying legal science on the pre-law track, and I'm a Bachelor of Concern.
Hello, my name is Teresa Wilson. I'm a junior advertising and public relations major at the University of Nebraska Lincoln, and I'm from Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay, great. And with that, we will have our first nominee come forward, Mr. Bradley Bird. And while he is coming forward, I guess this is it right here. He is a reappointment to the Environmental Quality Council, length of term June 2025 to June of 2029, a 4-year term, occupying the position on the Council of Labor. Mr. Bird is from Blair, Nebraska, and is currently employed with United Association as a union representative. Online comments, 0 proponents, 0 opponents, 0 neutral, and no ADA testimony. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today, Senators.
And if you could open with saying and spelling your name.
Yep, I'm Brad Bird, B-R-A-D, B-I-R-D. Actually, I live in Elkhorn, Nebraska now.
Well, we'll fix that.
Just recently moved, and my updated address I think Sally has there. So I served on the ethanol board for a long time, had the opportunity to step down off of that and join the Environmental Quality Council. as the labor representative on there, kind of midstream of a term. So this will be my first reappointment. I did serve the remainder of somebody else's term. It's a real pleasure. It's a good fit. I represent labor in Missouri, Iowa, Nebraska, and Kansas. I have 17,500 workers that I work with to represent, and also the Mechanical Contractors Association. And we do everything: power, air, water, cooling, data, everything. So it's just a really good fit. It's very interesting. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to do it and bring labor's perspective, not just labor's perspective, but our industry perspective to the board.
Okay, let's see if we have any questions.
Thank you.
Oh, Senator Rabel.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Byrd, for your previous service and your willingness to serve again. So what do you think is one of the most pressing issues concerning environmental quality that you have to deal with?
On the board or just in general?
How about on the board?
So on the board, we've just had a few meetings. We have actually a meeting tomorrow. Water. I mean, water has been the thing on the board. And in general, water with our AI boom, the data center boom, that's been the topic of a number of conversations I've been in. And power generation and water. So to answer your question.
So I'm pretty passionate about our water issues and water quality issues in Nebraska. So when it comes with the data centers, is it just water consumption? Do they discharge? Do they do water reclamation? Or what are some of the things you're hearing and talking about?
Kind of all of the above. It depends on the style, the type, the end user, who it is, the size of it, a lot of different things. But yeah, consumption's been the big topic lately, and water quality always is. And that's where, I am a proponent for doing them safely, building them in the right way. One of the things I did in the past, I was a trustee of an apprenticeship training fund for 12 years. So we teach our people the right skills, procedures, whatever, to do things safely, do them right, have environmental concerns in mind. But yeah, there's just a lot of issues. The technology's changing, the world's changing, and we need to figure out good ways to change with it here.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Other questions? I see none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Return to your seat and we'll finish the hearing. Are there any proponents on this nomination? Proponents? Opponents? Anybody opposed? Opponents? Anyone in the neutral capacity? Neutral? With that, we're going to close the hearing on Mr. Byrd. Thank you. And we'll go to Kristen Gottschalk. She is a reappointment to the Nebraska Power Review Board from the length of the term, January 2026 to January 2030, a 4-year term. The position on that council would be at-large or an independent. She is from Colon, Nebraska. Ms. Gottschalk has a degree from UNL in agriculture, natural resources, and wildlife management. She was formerly employed by the Nebraska Rural Electrical Association. Online comments: proponent 0, opponent 0, neutral 0, and no ADA testimony. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, I'm excited to be here. I've enjoyed my time on the Power Review Board, and I currently serve as Vice Chair of the Power Review Board right now. As Senator Brandt mentioned, I worked for NREA. I did that for 22 years, first as their magazine editor. That's what a wildlife biologist would do, right? First as their magazine editor, and then as their government relations director. And so I worked for them for 22 years. And so then I retired, kind of. Decided that as we look at the energy needs in Nebraska, there was a need to educate people about nuclear energy. So along with Jan Bostelman, we created the Advanced Nuclear Coalition, which is an education 501c3 organization to just talk about what nuclear energy is and what the life cycle is for nuclear energy. Like I said, I do enjoy my time on the board. I feel like I'm qualified in having worked in the industry for a number of years, understanding the needs of generation, transmission, and distribution in the state of Nebraska.
So, if you could spell your name.
Oh, I'm
Say-
sorry.
Say and spell it.
See, and
I'm
I didn't
sorry.
know that as a former
That's my fault.
person. Yes, Kristen Gottschalk, Kristen, Gottschalk.
All right, now let's see what we've got for questions. Senator Rabel.
I don't have a question for you, but I just wanted to say thank you because the Advanced Nuclear Symposium that you put on was really outstanding, and it was such a great educational opportunity for people on the Natural Resources Committee, but other people out in Nebraska too. So thanks for doing that.
All right, thank you. I appreciate hearing that.
Okay, other questions? And so you have served on the Power Review Board for how long?
3 years.
And what's your opinion of the Power Review Board?
Well, I think it serves a very important role. You know, as a longtime advocate for public power, the Power Review Board was essentially created to protect the consumers of public power. So I believe that its role is important in looking at generation resources, looking at service territory boundaries, and being there as a resource for the legislature.
So typically in a year's time, how many applications or complaints or hearings, how many events does the Power Review Board oversee?
You know, I couldn't give you an exact number. Complaints, we get very few. Some hearings will be multiple day hearings, such as when there was the proposed merger between Central Public Power and Irrigation and Dawson Public Power. That is one of those situations where the Power Review Board plays a critical role in looking at both the legal aspects and the public benefit aspects of those types of applications. I would have to look to Tim to get the exact number, but I would say more than 2/3 of our board meetings, we have the review of at least one application for territory change or generation upgrades, those sorts of things. So, and if we have months where there aren't any, then the board does not meet.
Okay. Oh, Senator Duquesne.
Thank you. So you're talking about reviewing upgrades and stuff like that. You also approve new generation sources coming into
New generation, yes. Most of the time, unless upgrades change the generation features or amount of energy they generate, those don't need to come before the board. But anything that would require an upgrade, increasing generation output, if you're upgrading transmission, and as long as it's above a certain level, sub-transmission and distribution don't come before the Power Review Board.
Okay, I see no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any proponents for this nominee? Proponents? Opponents? Any opponents? Anybody that would like to testify in the neutral capacity? Neutral? Seeing none, we will close the hearing on Ms. Gottschalk, and we will have our next nominee come forward, David Legal. And he is a reappointment to the Nebraska Power Review Board. The length of term would be January 2026 to January of 2030, a 4-year term. The position on the board that he occupies is that of accountant / Republican, is what it says on my sheet. Mr. Legal lives in Lincoln, is an attorney and a CPA, and works for his own company. Online comments for this candidate: 0 proponents, 0 opponents, 0 neutral, and no ADA testimony. And welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Senator. My name is David Legal, David Liegl. And as you indicated, I've been serving, I served an empty spot 2 or 3 years ago, I forget now, but I filled that out, and I consider it an honor to be nominated, and I look forward to serving our great state and doing what I can to make the Power Review Board fulfill its obligations.
Okay, let's see what we've got for questions. Senator Klaus.
Thank you, Senator Brandt. Mr. Leggett, tell me the advantage or the skill set that you bring to the board, what's important for a CPA. Basically what your role and things you work on.
Well, in fact, Executive Director Tim Texel and I met right before this meeting, talking about our budget and where we're at and where we need to be. So I think I bring a little expertise to that. Also, I think my law background helps when we have disagreements between the power companies. Have very few of those, but when we do, I think I can help there.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Juarez.
Thank you, Senator Brandt. Thank you for being here today. I would just like to know, I'm from Omaha, so I am concerned about our OPPD coal plant, and I wondered if there was any advice that you could give me on some key issues that you think I should look at with the coal plant for the future and their potential conversion. Do you have any opinions about that?
I don't have any solid opinions, I guess. I think that in order to keep electricity, power affordable, our plants that we have probably should continue to work. I do think that we should work towards being green, if you will, but I think the affordability issue should probably override that. I don't know if that helps you or not, but.
Thank you.
Other questions? So that brings up a great point. So Power Review Board, you have applications of multiple things come before you. Affordability, is that the number one priority? Is it reliability? Is it consistency?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
The stated mission, as I understand it, is first of all reliability, and then affordability.
Okay. And you think Nebraska's on the right track?
I think so.
Okay. I see no other questions. Thank you. Let's see if we have any other testifiers. So you can go back to your seat. Are there any proponents? Proponents for this nominee? Opponents? Anyone opposed? Neutral? Anybody to testify in the neutral capacity? Seeing none, we will close the hearing for Mr. Legal and move on to our first bill. Vice Chairman Decay will now run the meeting. We probably should have done the shell guard first.
Senator Brandt, you can go ahead and open.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Decay and members of the Natural Resources Committee. My name is Tom Brandt, T-O-M-B-R-A-N-D-T. I represent District 32, which is Fillmore, Thayer, Jefferson, Saline, and southwestern Lancaster counties. Today I'm introducing LB 1010. LB 1010 deals with the treatment of energy storage resources, commonly referred to as battery storage under Nebraska law. As energy storage technology continues to develop, questions have arisen about how these facilities fit within our existing statutory framework, particularly when they are developed as private standalone projects rather than as part of a generation facility. LB 1010 first defines the terms energy storage resource and associated energy storage resource to provide clarity and consistency in statute. The bill also explicitly provides private entities with the authority to construct energy storage resources in Nebraska and requires those private entities to file an application with the Power Review Board prior to construction. LB 1010 grants the Power Review Board clear statutory authority to review those applications, hold an evidentiary hearing, and either approve or deny the proposed energy storage resource. While the Power Review Board has determined through its own guidance that it already possesses this authority under existing law, This bill would codify that interpretation in statute and remove any ambiguity going forward. In addition, the bill requires a private electric supplier to enter into a joint transmission development agreement with a public power entity and to maintain a contractual agreement with a public power entity for the output of the privately owned energy storage resource. I would also note for the committee that the language in LB 1010 was developed and worked through the members of the Nebraska Power Association to ensure it aligns with Nebraska's public power structure and existing regulatory framework. At the same time, I want to be transparent with the committee that the private developers of standalone battery storage resources are not currently in agreement with this legislation. Over the past several weeks, we have had productive and ongoing discussions with all interested stakeholders, including private developers, and those conversations have been constructive. We made meaningful progress toward a potential compromise. However, despite those efforts, we have reached an impasse, in particular on the requirements related to the power purchase agreement and specifically what that agreement would look like. I want to emphasize that the goal of LB 1010 is not to restrict or prohibit the development of battery storage in Nebraska. Rather, the intent of this legislation is to ensure that as these resources are developed, they are done so in a way that protects Nebraska's public power system and ultimately the ratepayers who rely on it. I look forward to hearing from the testifiers today and to continuing discussions with all stakeholders with the hope of finding common ground moving forward. With that, I thank you for your consideration and am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Senator Rabel.
Thank you, Senator Decay. Senator Brandt, I was just going through some of the opponents' online comments, and one of the concerns that was raised by NACO, and I don't know if NACO is here to speak or not, but they said, you know, if the county approves it, then that company that is going to be building a data storage has already invested a lot of money in that project. And then can you imagine or tell me or what you're envisioning, what are some grounds that the Power Review Board would deny a project?
I can't speak specifically to how the Power Review Board operates, but currently they would have to go to appear before the Power Review Board, they would have to partner with an entity of public power, whether that's a generator or a local distributor like, let's say, Norris Public Power. Without that, they probably wouldn't get approved at the Power Review Board. So there has to be some kind of a joint agreement, and that's been kind of the sticking point on this, what that agreement would look like, this power purchase agreement between public power and the private entity. I think the intent of the bill is to give guardrails to the Power Review Board to make sure that public power, the intent of public power is still there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Quickly, with the storage units, would this be, you see this as a long-term where battery storage becomes more efficient and longer lasting, or do you see this as to work with the distribution companies to level off peak loads?
Both. I think just in the short time that I've looked at this, that the batteries are getting more efficient, able to go longer, and I know there will be people from those industries able to address the technology questions. But like so many things we do in the legislature, the technology is ahead of the legislation. The technology is moving forward at a pretty fast clip. So in a nutshell, how these batteries work is they try and buy power at the low point of the day, let's say at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when there's not much power use, and then they release it at when there's a higher demand for the power, think like 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a hot day when all the pivots and air conditioners and data centers and crypto and everybody's calling for energy. I think there's a place in our system for these, but the purpose of the bill, though, is to make sure that our ratepayers are protected.
Now that energy stored in these batteries, would they need to be sold through a purchase power agreement within the state of Nebraska, or could they go outside the state, across the river or something?
The way it is written now, it would be a power purchase agreement with the Nebraska utility.
Okay.
But we, like I said, we'll see where the hearing goes.
All right, thank you. Senator Hughes.
Thank you, Vice Chair Takei. Thanks for bringing this, Senator Brandt. And I'm guessing this is kind of we had a bill doing something, I don't know, last year or whatever, and now I think you're trying to bridge that gap. What happens if we don't pass LB 1010?
Battery storage probably doesn't get built in Nebraska. This is good for both sides so they know what the rules are. I know a lot of this would be private industry building this, although I do know Public Power is building a 50 meg, I think, up in Senator Takei's district on one of the wind farms up there, or northern Nebraska. I think that's all your district, isn't it? But a battery can be 500 megawatt. It can be a very large, and I don't know what the limits of what that could be. Maybe it could be bigger than that or smaller than that. And then you've got SPP involved with this, and so you've got very large loads coming on and offline at certain times, so we have to make sure there's not congestion in the system. So let's say that 500 meg battery is dumping a lot of power into transmission, that it doesn't compete with what our existing generation is doing. So that's where your power review board comes in, that's where your power purchase agreement comes in, so that before we build anything, everybody knows what the rules are.
Thank you.
Real quick, off of that, so you're saying they would work within the entities, one of the utility companies, so that energy released wouldn't affect ongoing generation that would cause negative pricing going out at a certain time of day. They would have to be within them.
That would be my understanding, and people behind me will probably clarify that point when they come forward. I'm sure you'll hear from Public Power and the privates on how this would operate.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me.
Senator Juarez.
Senator Brandt, I just have a quick question. Wasn't sure, I was trying to read here, if I missed it in your introduction, but who brought you this bill?
Public Power brought me the bill.
Okay.
Yeah, because they were looking for clarity on this, and we had several bills on this last year. And there's also some in other committees this year.
Senator Conrad.
Thank you, Senator. I read just in the paper, I think today, that there was a battery storage project in Lancaster County that was working through the processes.
That was what? Excuse me?
That was working through existing processes.
I'm aware that LES maybe has a small one. I'm also aware that the solar project that's getting built down around Hallam probably has some battery storage involved with that. So I'm not sure. Outside of those two things, I'm not aware of anything else.
Okay, I'll send around the article just in case folks didn't subscribe to the Journal Star, but it just kind of begs the question about what's permissible now and why this measure is necessary. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Seeing none, are you going to be here to close? With that, we'll have our first proponent. Afternoon. Go ahead.
Ready?
Floor is yours.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, Senator Takei and members of the Natural Resources Committee. My name is Bruce Vitosh, B-R-U-C-E-V-I-T-O-S-H. I am the General Manager and CEO of Norris Public Power District. I'm here today to testify in support of LB 1010 on behalf of Norris Public Power District and the Nebraska Rural Electric Association. Nebraska consumer-owned electric suppliers and private electric suppliers see an opportunity to capitalize on battery storage technology. Private companies see an opportunity to locate their battery storage facilities in Nebraska, to purchase Nebraska's low-cost power for auxiliary services, to charge their batteries, and to sell the electricity into the market. Nebraska is open to the private development of large-scale battery resources and any economic development benefits that they may provide. These resources work best when both public and private companies work together for their deployment. Electricity discharged from a large-scale battery is not a standard source of electricity and could have a dramatic impact on public power. A close contractual partnership can ensure these resources are best utilized to benefit both private companies and all Nebraskans. There are provisions in state statutes that already addresses the generation, transmission, and distribution of energy. With battery storage being a relatively new technology, it is appropriate that LB 1010 addresses the storage of energy and the approval in state statutes as well. LB 1010 includes language that requires private electric suppliers to file an application with the Nebraska Power Review Board for approval. The application is to be done jointly with a Nebraska consumer-owned electric supplier. Requiring both private and public power suppliers to seek board approval establishes a consistent standard and supports a collaborative approach towards shared goals for Nebraska's electric systems. Along the same lines, LB 1010 requires that a private electric supplier enter into a power purchase agreement with a Nebraska consumer-owned electric supplier for the purchase of all electric energy capacity throughout the operational life of the resource. This provision is of the utmost importance. A unified approach between private and public power suppliers on the deployment of these battery facilities, it protects our electric grid, ensures Nebraska's consumers share the benefits of these facilities, and aligns with the core principles of Nebraska's public power systems. LB 1010 states that nothing in the bill shall be construed to authorize a private electric supplier to sell or deliver electricity at retail in Nebraska. This is a basic tenet that cannot be compromised due to the extraordinary benefits public power has provided to Nebraskans for nearly a century. For the reasons provided in my testimony today and other provisions that I did not mention today, Norris Public Power District and the Nebraska Rural Electric Association support LB 1010. Thank you for allowing me to speak today, and I would entertain any questions at this time.
Thank you. Are there any? Senator Rabel.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vitash, for testifying. Can you help us understand what you think that process will be to apply for the permit or approval from the Power Review Board? How long will it take? I know that one letter of opposition felt like it was another layer of bureaucracy impeding the private-public relationship already, but what have you talked about the timeline for the permits?
Yeah, good question. So regarding the process with the Nebraska Power Review Board, I'm not sure how long it would take to go through that process. I'm not really sure how they would do that on their side of things. But I would tell you that from Norris Public Power District's perspective is there's multiple reasons that we have to go to the Nebraska Power Review Board for approval for different things that we're doing in our territory. And from my perspective is on those particular things that we go to them with, it's very timely and it does not delay any of our projects.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Juarez.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. My question is, does your company currently have a project planned in the future in regards to this?
Okay. So we currently do not have any battery energy storage facilities in our territory today. We serve 6 counties in southeast Nebraska. But we are actively working with our power supplier, which is Nebraska Public Power District, and also a private energy developer on a project, a battery energy resource project. So we're having discussions right now, and we're working together. The 3 parties are to make this project happen for the private developer.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Senator Klaus.
Thank you, Senator. Yeah. Sweet Josh, thank you for being here. Would not having a battery cause a problem with that project or no?
By not having it would not. This project that I'm referring to is It would be connected to a wind farm that's already been in operation for many years.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Next proponent. Did you say no story?
Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Brad Underwood, BradUnderwood. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at OPPD, and I'm testifying on behalf of the Nebraska Power Association as well as OPPD. As many of us know, Nebraska is a unique model focused on public power. That public power system has delivered very high scores perennially on reliability and cost. We are one of the only states to do both consistently. Day in and day out, Public Power works to prioritize these outcomes on behalf of our customer owners. A lot of this prioritization is done during resource planning. OPPD approaches our resource planning much like you would a 401k. Diversification, careful planning, and a reliable policy structure really enable us to do this. As we've advanced our resource planning, we have a 420 megawatt solar facility and 170 megawatt battery facility going into service here shortly at the end of this year, possibly early next year. My testimony today is not about the importance of batteries or the role they play. My testimony is focused on how they are done. Some of the parties that are currently operating in and around the state are taking advantage of Nebraska's alleged lack of clarity when it comes to ESR policy by exploiting some of the statutory definitions to circumvent the proper regulatory channels. As the senator who introduced the bill noted, LB 1010 clarifies the definitional uncertainty and addresses the concerns held by public power on how the state would expect storage to be deployed. SPP recently finalized its rules for charging and discharging study methodologies, and those rules received FERC acceptance in November of 25. However, the new rules, albeit immature, created three primary areas of concern for OPPD in particular. The study model used to charge a battery that simulates the transmission system uses the least stressed model it can. We are always in an environment where some aspect of the system is not working properly, and we don't feel like the charging studies properly reflect the reality of how the system is operated. Second, the SPP tariff, which is our governing documents when it comes to the RTO, are very unclear on which firm load is cut during a system event. And the primary concern there becomes if a battery device has firm load and customers are a firm load, what gives? We would like clarity to those questions. Third, the SPP studies for the winter reliability season for 2025 and 2026. SPP does a prospective study on the next season and how the system looks. They concluded that 98.5% chance of being able to serve load, 98.5. And that's if no new load is added this winter from last winter. 98.5 seems very high, but when you're talking about the reliability expectation of a customer, it is not. It is 99.999%. And so even in the study methodologies that we do, there are imperfections in studies that sometimes don't show up in that show up in real-time operations that don't necessarily show up in the study. And the 98.5%, from my perspective, should indicate to operators of the system and policymakers how stressed the system is. It used to be 99.999. We all know that. We all have reliable service. And now it's harder to come by. While SPP and some battery developers may continue to say that this is all figured out and my concerns are not relevant, we don't agree. And so specifically, there's one large-scale operating storage device in SPP. It's in Oklahoma. It is very large. And there's none in Nebraska, even though some of the testifiers noted that there's a couple of large ones coming online, including OPPD's large one. Definitional clarity and the requirement to work with public power entities through a PPA will ensure the best outcomes for all parties that are relevant. So I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Are there any, Senator Claus?
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. A couple questions just to clarify. Now, when you said you do have projects presently?
Yes, sir. We have one 170 megawatt battery coming online.
And then clarify on the talk about the firm load between, are you saying that you have a choice between charging up the battery or the firm for a supply? Tell me how that works or what you're thinking is there.
Yes, thank you for the question. So there's two types of service within SPP. There's non-firm service on the transmission system, which means if things start hitting the fan, if stuff gets tough, the non-firm is not going to be served. If it's a challenged environment, the non-firm's not going to get service. The firm remains priority, and so load is firm. For I think reasons we would all conclude that people need reliable electricity, especially during these extreme weather events. If a storage device is firm and the load is firm, and we have to navigate a hard decision on the system, which one of those gets service and which one doesn't? It's unclear to us. And so we would like and are advocating for more clarity in that regard. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking you were talking about. I just wanted to confirm that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any question? Senator Hughes?
Thank you, Vice Chair Takei. Thanks for coming in, Mr. Underwood. Sorry, I'm struggling today to stay awake, so this might be partly because my brain isn't working all the way, but what you're saying on you don't trust the SPP's guidelines, or what do you call them, whatever
Studies or framework.
studies or
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
Is that why you support this and having it go to the Power Review Board? So it's kind of like an extra layer of security and, I don't know, yeah, not security, that's the wrong word.
Oversight.
But yeah, oversight to make sure that for us, we're staying tight and what we need for Nebraska, and then SPP is just that extra territory. Is that?
I think that's a great way to characterize it. I think SPP and the Power Review Board both play
Both
very
play
important
roles for, and Power Review Board's a little closer to us, so it's a little bit, yeah.
Yes, Senator.
Okay.
And
thank you.
my, you're very welcome.
No.
And my commentary on the studies and the tariff framework is more, how much caution and prudency are we approaching this subject with? And we believe the subject warrants prudency and warrants caution, and at times we don't always necessarily see that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Senator Juarez?
So I have a quick question, I hope. I just want to make sure I understand, does OPPD support the eminent domain for the battery storage?
I am not as sharp as our legislative folks. Can you do we support the use of eminent domain for unapproved projects? Is that the question?
Because it says here, we're talking about eminent domain of electrical energy storage property. And I was taking notes on the points you were reflecting, and it wasn't clear to me where OPPD sides with that.
Thank you for the clarification. My understanding, and it is a bit limited, is if you don't go through the process channels in Nebraska to get your generation or your storage or your transmission authorized properly, that you are subject to that consequence potentially. That's my understanding.
The consequence of eminent domain.
Yes, that's correct. That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Back to firm and non-firm loads. Would that be a contractual deal between battery storage and the utility that's going to be using it, basically laying out wants versus needs? So if you need the generation, would that take precedent over any backup generation?
Sure. Acknowledging there may be other perspectives in the room, my perspective would be the firm service is a greater degree of reliability for the system operator, And so for the battery assets that we're contracting with, we would always desire to have firm service so that the battery is available for our customers in the event it is needed. I think there are other entities or individuals that pursue transmission service with SPP through the non-firm, and it would not be appropriate for system operators to assume that asset will operate in a non-firm role. It would be less likely to be cleared to operate.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Next proponent.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the committee, good afternoon. For the record, my name is John Hansen, J-O-H-N, Hansen, H-A-N-S-E-N, and I'm the president of Nebraska Farmers Union and also its lobbyist. So today, I think what is not in question, because it is a generally recognized benefit to the reliability of the entire system, is those kinds of wind or solar projects primarily that have battery storage connected to them. So that's going forward today. So there's a small project that LES has done here in Lincoln. There's an MPPD medium-sized project that's already as part of an upgrade of the project down in Gage County that is part of that upgrade, is including additional battery storage. And so the new project up in Pierce County, which is the 170 megawatt battery storage as a part of a large solar project, would be one of the larger projects, solar projects and storage projects in the Midwest. So that's a very large scale. That's under construction. So is that a good idea or not? We pretty much all agree for system needs, all things considered, that that's an additional asset because it increases the dispatchability of the renewable energy. So what is in question is what is the most appropriate and proper way to move forward relative to excuse me, standalone projects, battery storage projects that are not tied to an existing renewable energy project of one kind or another. So then how do they fit into our system, and how do we treat them, and how do we think about them as a part of the public power system? How do we think about them as a part of the grid? And so there are, I think, needs to try to figure out kind of the rules of the road for those kinds of independent entities. Because depending on whether or not these projects are able to just harvest low-cost energy at different times of the day off of the grid that's not being used, and then resell them later at some point. The terms under which they sell them, I think, is, to me, the question that needs clarification. So is that going to be sold to a public power entity that then uses it as a part of their total energy needs and capacity of their system in order to be able to meet the needs of their customers in the system? Or is this a standalone project that is selling into the Southwest Power Pool, either on the 5-minute market or the next day market? So you got a couple different markets to pick from there. And so to me, it gets a bit murky if you're not tied to an existing project that's a part of a PPA tied to a public power entity. If you're a standalone entity and you're selling into the Southwest Power Pool market, you're really, in a way, competing with public power to a certain extent. And so does that pose a threat to the public power system? Well, you've certainly got an additional source of energy that can be released into the system that's not under the management of public power. And so that creates some congestion issues. It creates also some safety issues. And so how much of that, I think, that is actually covered by the Southwest Power Pool. And so, from the Southwest Power Pool perspective, Public Power pretty much hands over the keys to its fleet of energy vehicles to Southwest Power Pool, and then ranks the need and said, okay, when the ranking comes, here's the order in which we want you to use it. And so there's a lot of coordination between the Southwest Power Pool and what units are on and what units are off. But to my way of thinking, this particular bill provides some clarity as to being able to make sure that this particular energy source gets included in a ranking system somewhere as a part of the public power system. And so of the two, or at least two or more different kind of competing ways of looking at this issue from a regulatory standpoint, I give the lean in favor of public power. And if you followed any or all of that, I applaud you. But that is the basis for my thinking, and I'd be glad to end my testimony and answer any questions if I could.
Are there any questions? Thank you.
You bet, thank you.
Next proponent. Any other proponents? First opponent.
Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee, good afternoon. David Levy, D-A-V-I-D L-E-V-Y, Baird Home Law Firm, here today as registered lobbyist on behalf of Eolian LP and Sophos Power in opposition to LB 1010 as introduced. We appreciate Senator Brandt bringing this bill, and we look forward to working with him on it after the hearing. My clients are opposed to LB 1010 as introduced for the following reasons. LB 1010 as introduced would deny our state the benefits of private investment in the critical electrical grid infrastructure that is standalone energy storage. The bill sends a clear signal that the state is closed for business to resources that can be developed with private capital to address our growing electrical demand and make our electric grid more reliable. States we compete against for economic growth, such as Kansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri, do not erect barriers to business models that add valuable capacity to the system. We believe we should not either. As of February 9, SPP's published queue shows over a gigawatt of energy storage projects with generator interconnection agreements in Nebraska. That's billions of dollars of private property tax paying investment. We should not send that investment to other states, in our view. Specifically, our first point of opposition is to the requirements to have a power purchase agreement with the Nebraska utility, to have a Nebraska utility as a co-applicant at the Power Review Board, and to have consent from other Nebraska utilities. These veto powers, before my clients could even apply to the Power Review Board, are unprecedented, unnecessary, and are harmful to our state's growth and development. To be very clear, my clients have no objection to having to go to the Power Review Board, have a hearing, and obtain approval from the Power Review Board before they could build one of these projects. This is a new technology. This is new to the state. Just like when wind and solar were new, the legislature passed LB 1048, required that we go to the Power Review Board. We are not objecting to that. We want the freedom to be able to go to the Power Review Board without effective veto power of having to have an agreement with public power first before we do that, have them as a co-applicant, essentially have them say, yes, okay, Mother May I, you may go to the Power Review Board and apply. The Power Review Board has sufficient authority and competence to evaluate any proposed project from the perspective of protecting our ratepayers and providing public benefit. As you heard from other testifiers, that's one of the big jobs. That's one of the reasons the Power Review Board exists. The utilities know how to intervene and participate in those proceedings. That case-by-case evaluation is the proper forum to deal with this. A blanket veto right, like LB 1010 as introduced proposes, forecloses that option and forecloses development. Again, we just want the freedom to apply. Mandating a commercial agreement before a private entity can even apply for state approval also completely skews the negotiating leverage. if I have to have an agreement with you before I can even go apply and explain myself to the Power Review Board, that's not an arm's length negotiation. That's not going to allow for or encourage the private investment in this industry in our state. The second major issue is eminent domain. LB 1010 confirms unfettered eminent domain authority for the utilities over a private battery energy storage facility. These projects are unfinanceable under that scenario because they're long-term investments of hundreds of millions of dollars. Lenders and investors will not participate in that with eminent domain looming. My clients seek eminent domain protection through a statutory waiver. We've negotiated with the utilities and have made no fewer than 4 proposals to compromise on LB 1010. We have yet to receive a concrete response. I have passed out our latest proposed amendment. It is simple. It says a private standalone battery storage facility must obtain Power Review Board approval. It says prior to applying for such approval, the applicant must offer to the utilities, public utilities in our state, the right to contract for the capacity from the project, the right to dispatch the project, and the right to buy the project outright. If no utility responds in 60 days, then we can proceed. Our amendment also says private standalone storage is exempt from eminent domain. We're grateful to Senator Brandt for his work on this issue, and we appreciate the meetings that we've had and the utilities' participation in this so far. That Senator Prokop have been instrumental in arranging those meetings. I respectfully urge the committee to hold LB 1010 until a good faith compromise can be achieved, and we remain committed to working hard to achieve that. Thank you for your time, and I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Senator Moser.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So this is eminent domain in a little bit different direction. I mean, quite often when we talk about eminent domain, the utility's trying to buy property from a private farmer or developer to put a project together where they don't necessarily have everybody's permission. But in your case, the utility, after you built the storage, they could come and buy it?
They could come and take it by eminent domain, correct. And that's what we need protection from, because without that protection, the people who...
It's a really good deal, they're gonna buy it from you.
Well, and you know, you have a lender or investor who puts forth hundreds of millions of dollars in expectation of a long-term return. Suddenly a utility shows up after, let's say, 3 years and acquires the project by eminent domain. Yes, it's not free, right? The utility has to pay fair market value for it, but there's risk in what is fair market value at that point. A court decides that. The parties don't decide that at arm's length. And now your long-term expected return is gone because the project is gone after only 3 years. And so lenders and investors will not lend or invest in projects with that eminent domain threat in place.
So some of the appeal to the project is the long-term depreciation and tax credits or whatever that the project might generate, and if you got bought out, those go away.
Long-term revenue stream, depreciation, yes, all of those things, Senator, exactly.
What are you going to do with this power, though, if you don't have a purchase agreement with a utility? I mean, you'd be kind of an orphan project there without connection, right?
Well, sure. So the first goal, absolutely, for my clients is to have some kind of an agreement with a Nebraska utility. That's great if we can achieve that. Our concern is not that we would go and try and do that. It's that we can't even go to the Power Review Board without that. But to your question of what would happen, would you build the project, for example, if you didn't have that? You might, because the Southwest Power Pool is an open market. That's the point of the Southwest Power Pool, right? It's a regional market. So you could sell your energy into that market. You could have a contract for the capacity with somebody who needs the capacity. Battery energy storage really has 3 attributes. One is the energy, one is the capacity that it provides, and one is the ancillary benefits, voltage support, frequency regulations, things that help make the grid more reliable. The ancillary services can benefit utilities, those benefit SPP. The capacity can benefit utilities, it can also benefit other parties. The energy can benefit the utilities, it can benefit other parties, it can benefit SPP. So there are markets greater beyond just Nebraska utilities. Nebraska utilities sure are the ideal market. Again, we just want to be able to go to the Power Review Board. One of the things we have to prove to the Power Review Board is that the project serves the public convenience and necessity. If we didn't have a place to sell, or my clients didn't have a place to sell that output, or they were going to sell that output in a way that we couldn't demonstrate to the Power Review Board that the Power Review Board thought was harmful to the public or to the utilities, to the ratepayers, then we would lose at the Power Review Board and we couldn't build the project. So the Power Review Board provides those safeguards, that review to what's going to happen to that power, that capacity, those ancillary services in the market. That's the place we think that this ought to be determined.
So, do you think that utilities consider these, I don't want to say unsolicited projects, but independent projects as kind of wild cards that they can't control?
I can't speak for the utilities. My sense is that control is something that's very important to them. My clients see these as an opportunity. You've got private capital coming to the market saying to the utilities, we would like to build this and we would like to have you as a customer for this. Again, all we're asking in our opposition and in our amendment is to be able to go to the Power Review Board and make our case at the Power Review Board. If we go there with a utility as a contracting partner, that's great. That's probably an easier hearing at the Power Review Board. We just want to be able to get to the Power Review Board.
Well, there's some big forces at play here, and I'm just trying to understand the dynamics of it all.
Yeah, they're great questions. I thank you for the opportunity to continue the dialogue.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Klaus.
Thank you, Senator Decay. Ms. Levy, I want to talk about the priority. You know, if you are not, don't have the PPA with utilities and you have a peak load, a call for demand, would your agreement supersede that with the power district? In other words, I can see it as a competition for who's going to get on the transmission, because you could have transmission congestion. So who determines whether it's your power or generated by the power districts? Tell me how you think that process, I think that's what I heard was that you would be equal, you'd be competing with them for that transmission congestion.
So a couple things, and as Senator Moser said, there's a lot here. One of the things batteries do is they actually help relieve congestion because they're putting energy on the system at congested locations. That's why those locations where my clients seek to build these projects are desirable and sought after. So the batteries actually help the congestion on the system. I know that wasn't your question, but you mentioned congestion. I wanted to make that point. Our clients respectfully disagree with OPPD, at least as the testifier stated, in that our clients believe that SPP's processes and the rules that they've set forth last November are robust and do work. But again, and I know I keep repeating myself, but it's really a pretty simple message. That question of who has priority, or would that battery cause a utility to have a challenge serving its other loads, to me those are questions for the Power Review Board. We have put language in our amendments, I honestly can't remember if it's the one I handed out, we tried to simplify it, but in our earlier proposals, that showing, the same showings you would make to the Southwest Power Pool, would have to be showings that we would have to make to the Power Review Board as well. And we would have to work with the interconnecting utility before we went to the Power Review Board to try and reach some agreement on those questions, those technical questions of dispatch and load and priority and all of those things. So we're not trying to ignore those. We just think that the Power Review Board is the place to deal with those. NLB 1010 as introduced basically says if the utilities don't want to contract with you, you can't even go to the Power Review Board. That's our issue, in addition to eminent domain.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Hughes?
Thank you, Vice Chair Decay. Thank you for coming in, Mr. Levy. So, about the eminent domain concern, I don't know if you're privy, we had a bill 1261 about private generation, that there would be an exception. There, I think, I didn't pull up the bill, but there is a eminent domain piece in there that kind of protects that private. Are you looking for wording similar to that for this?
So, thank you. So LB 1261, you're right, was a complicated bill. It was a good hearing, a long hearing. Easy for me to say it was a good hearing. I didn't have to sit here for the whole thing. But it's a very interesting bill. I'm very familiar with it. It is fundamentally about eminent domain. It has in it what I would term a contractual eminent domain waiver provision,
Yeah.
where if I have a contract with the utility, we can contract away, or the utility can contract away that eminent domain authority that the Constitution and the legislature have given them. What we're seeking in our amendments to LB 1010 is a statutory eminent domain waiver. So whether you have a contract or not, you're protected from eminent domain, and you're also protected from eminent domain from any party who might have eminent domain authority, not just that utility that you're contracting with. Now, would another utility come and use eminent domain on a project in another utility service territory? I don't know. But when I've talked to the New York lawyers who represent the entities who lend and invest hundreds of millions of dollars for these projects, they seek that broad statutory eminent domain waiver. So that's what we're seeking here, and that's the difference between this and LB 1261. They are similar, but that's the difference.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Juarez?
Thank you. I just have a quick question. Is battery development really taking off in our country? Is it happening everywhere? Do you have any knowledge of that?
I do have some knowledge of that, and the short answer is yes. As I mentioned in my testimony, there's a gigawatt of projects in the Southwest Power Pool process just in Nebraska. So there's multiple gigawatts in Southwest Power Pool. There are standalone battery energy storage projects being developed across the country. I know our clients are working in Kansas and Missouri and California and Texas, including with public power entities. The city of San Antonio is the biggest public power entity in the country, and our client Eolian has a agreement with them on a standalone battery energy system. So yes, these are happening all over the country. It's the fastest and cheapest capacity to market right now, and Nebraska is not the only place that needs electrical capacity yesterday to continue growing economically. Lots of states are facing these challenges. We all carry these things around and want to charge them and search on them and do all of those things. So it is a rapidly evolving and developing technology, and we certainly don't want Nebraska to be left behind.
Thank you.
One question, follow up on how you come into a purchase power agreement with a utility. I don't know if there's a standard formula that they use to have purchase power agreement, but my question is what happens if you enter into that and you don't like what they are bidding to pay you for your battery storage electricity? Does that force their hand to give you a better pricing, or does that also force the hand that you could go someplace else, which might be preemptive to open up investor-owned sales, like circumventing around public power in that aspect or not?
So thank you for the question. I'm glad you allowed me to clarify. If I have a product that I think is worth $30 a megawatt hour, and under LB 1010 as introduced, I have to have a contract to sell that product to a Nebraska utility, and they know that. They're not going to potentially offer me $30 a megawatt hour. If they offer me $5 a megawatt hour, I can't make money doing that. I'm not going to invest if I can't make money. I'm going to go to another state and build there. Under our amendment to LB 1010, I'd love to contract with them. But now I can go to the Power Review Board and seek approval for my project without having those handcuffs of that forced contract where I have no negotiating leverage. I use the word circumvention, and with all respect, it's not circumventing, it's making an economic decision. Right now, with legislation that would force a contract, I have no negotiating leverage. It's not an arm's length contract. And that's not good, in my view, for anybody, because that means that private tax-paying investment property tax-paying investment is not going to come to Nebraska. It will go to a neighboring state, where in that neighboring state it could still affect our electric prices, but we wouldn't get any of the benefits of it.
So, say a public utility company has other contracts in place and using the $30 megawatt, $5 megawatt, and so for consistency, if everybody else is being offered and being paid for, say, $20 a megawatt, and you're still not happy with the 20 megawatt, what's that do to the process, and where do you go from there, and what options does public power have in that aspect then?
So we can, I think the options are continue to try and negotiate with public power and see if we can negotiate an arm's length commercial transaction. That's my client's preferred option. If we can't do that, then my clients have a couple of choices. They can go deploy their capital elsewhere, or they can go under our amendment, not under LB 1010 as introduced, but under our amendment, they could go to the Power Review Board and make their case to the Power Review Board that their project meets the standards in the statute, that it's the most economical, that it's not duplicative, and that it satisfies the public convenience and necessity, or furthers the public convenience and necessity. If we couldn't make that showing, we would not get authority to construct from the Power Review Board. If we could, we would get authority to construct, and then we would have still a choice to make. You could go back and try and negotiate with the utilities, or you could go try and sell any or all of the attributes of that project or the entire project itself to somebody else. Just a private free market transaction. And again, just take the liberty here, if I might, that's where we believe the Power Review Board part of this is so important. It's not just complete freedom Wild West. It's if we can make the showing to the Power Review Board that we can sell it not to a utility but still meet those standards, we can do that. If not selling it to a utility, we can't make that showing, then we can't build the project in Nebraska. The Power Review Board provides that safeguard.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other? Senator
Thank you. Just a kind of a quick question with your relationship with the Power Review Board. You've got lots of projects you're working on. Do you go through them all the time, or other projects you don't? Or how do you channel? Do you channel all of it through them, or some of them you do on your own?
So battery energy storage projects, as we sit here today, would have to go, standalone battery energy storage projects, as we sit here today, would have to go through the Power Review Board under their guidance document 14, which we worked on with the Power Review Board and the utilities. We work on other projects, wind and solar, for example, that go to the Power Review Board only in a certification type context. Prior to 2016, those had to go to the Power Review Board for a hearing like what we're talking about here, and we took those projects through that process as well. But
now you don't have to do that.
Correct. And we haven't done it yet with a utility scale standalone battery project because of this regulatory uncertainty. OPPD's board has adopted a resolution that says that they believe that private standalone storage is illegal in Nebraska, full stop. Talk about regulatory uncertainty, right? We apply and put our case together and go to the Power Review Board, and they show up and they say, well, you can't even be here because this is illegal. That doesn't do anybody any good. Then we're in court for a couple of years. this is what we're trying to avoid. And I appreciate Senator Brandt bringing this and Senator Prokop in particular working on this issue as well, to get the legislature to give us, as John Hanson said, those rules of the road so that we know what those rules are. Capital investment like certainty. And that's what we're looking for here, at least as to the process. We don't know whether we'll win or lose at the Power Review Board. We just want the chance to go try.
Thank you.
If I could follow up one more time.
Yeah.
Real quick. So obviously there's a cost analysis studies done on what you're gonna need per megawatt to make it work. And you probably have an idea of what public power would be standard contracts they have for what they're paying per megawatt from standalone companies like this. You know you need $30. They're offering 20, and you might have an idea that Southwest Power Pool would be offering $25 to $30. Does that curtail your chances of working in good faith to work with power, knowing that you have something in your back pocket somewhere else?
No, because when you're selling into a market, you're not guaranteed that $25 using those numbers. Right? The market goes up and down. Southwest Power Pool picks energy every 5 minutes based on the lowest cost energy. So we don't know. So playing the market is risky, but it is an option. My clients would much rather have a contract where they know what that price is going to be, and that's locked in for a long time. So I'm not in any way saying my clients don't want a contract with public power. They just don't want to have that legislated because that takes away any arm's length negotiation. The market does provide another opportunity, but it's a risky one in its own right.
Okay, I appreciate your time. Thank you. Any other questions? Next opponent.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Brandt, Senator DeKay, members of the Natural Resources Committee. My name is David Carey, D-A-V-I-D-C-A-R-Y. I am appearing before the committee in my capacity as Director of the Lincoln-Lancaster County Planning and Development Services Department. I'm here to testify on behalf of the Lancaster County Board in opposition to LB 1010, and there's some very familiar faces here. It's good to see you. Lancaster County has a long-standing commitment to serving as responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars, working to reduce the property tax burden on our residents to the greatest extent possible while providing exceptional county services. One way to achieve this balance is to promote economic development, which expands the tax base while creating jobs and economic opportunities. Battery storage energy development is one industry that provides these benefits and which presents opportunities and benefits for Lancaster County. Providing a local perspective on this conversation today, we have several in development battery energy storage or BESS projects in Lancaster County that highlight the scale of this economic impact on our county alone. For the Panama Energy Center project, a 120 megawatt BESS component of the project is estimated to provide $6.2 million in personal property tax revenue. For the Pawnee Lake Resilient Power Project, a 200 megawatt BESS personal property tax revenue of approximately $7.3 million and sales tax revenue of approximately $13.2 million are estimated, for a estimated total tax revenue of approximately $20.5 million over an estimated 20-year operational life. Likewise, for the Cornhusker Resilient Power Project, a 170 megawatt BESS project, personal property tax revenue of approximately $6.1 million and sales tax revenue of approximately $4.5 million are estimated, of total tax revenue of approximately $20.6 million over an estimated 20-year operational life. The tax revenue these energy projects and potential future projects would generate for the county and other political subdivisions is significant, allowing us to reduce future tax burden on our residents. LB 1010 removes local control from counties by putting final approval of these projects in the hands of the state under the proposed regulations. A county could approve a project only to have the state deny it. Moreover, LB 1010 instates regulatory barriers to battery storage development that are so onerous, the industry would effectively be barred from developing in the state of Nebraska, eliminating the opportunity for counties to benefit from the tax revenues and the economic development opportunities that arise from these private energy development projects. The financial implications of this to a county like Lancaster are substantial. Respectfully, we oppose state overreach into local decision-making and a limitation on economic development opportunities that LB 1010 represents. Thank you for the opportunity to testify and for your service to our great state, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions? Senator?
Very bold.
Great, thank you.
Good to see you, Mr. Carey. Thanks for being here. So can you tell us a little bit about the process that you have gone through with these projects so that we get a better idea that you're really not bypassing the power board, but you're doing all the necessary regulatory work with probably LES or another public power district?
Certainly, yes. Thank you for the question. So here locally in Lancaster County, we have created our own local regulations, basically created in the last year a special permit process for these operations, these BESS battery energy storage systems operations, to be able to be approved locally. And so from our perspective, we have had a conversation. We have talked to our county board members who have approved the process and the regulations to make sure that we're considering the needs of the local community when these projects are being proposed. And we are in the process now of, the city of Lincoln likewise has done that. They have approved recently a standalone BESS project very recently, and we're in the process going through the potential approval of another one out in the county. And like I said in my testimony, we have these other aspects of other power projects that have been approved and are being built now that include a portion of it for BESS operations. So we feel that we locally have made a determination that this is important to us. Besides the fact that we have that local generation of property taxes that really takes a burden off of local residents over time, we also perceive this as an opportunity for private businesses to have an operation and to have that opportunity here locally and also in our state. So that's our perspective on this. It's not that we have no regulations, it's that we do have those regulations, and we've determined that those are appropriate for this type of operation.
So can I follow up? Did any of these projects have a stipulation about being guaranteed, freedom from an eminent domain take by any of the local jurisdiction there?
That's a good question, given what is in the proposed bill. So that is not an issue that came up locally as far as that being part of any agreement at the local level. So we haven't taken that into consideration up until this point.
Okay, but I guess the question is, it hasn't deterred investment from moving forward on these projects, with or without that eminent domain discussion being held?
I think that's fair to say that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Other questions from committee members? Senator Juarez.
Hi, thank you for coming in, and I appreciate your, interest in local control, but I'm wondering if we approve this bill, I'm trying to understand what the ramifications are for your projects.
I think the concern is, there's a basic concern about local control. I think that's a typical conversation that we have between local entities as well as the state legislature. But beyond that, I do think that I know there is concern that there may be decisions made at the state level that, as Mr. Levy was testifying, stated, that would preempt from the projects from happening. And if that is the case that starts to happen, the benefits that we're seeing now here locally for that tax-based revenue and an investment in our county, we're concerned that those will be diminished or if not go away. That is the local concern, in addition to the basic premise of loss of local control.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to close by saying, with great bias, that, you know, if this gets, if it goes your way and you get this wonderful revenue for Lancaster County, don't forget about the great passenger rail project. Thank you.
Noted.
I do.
Let's take Senator Hughes.
Thanks for coming in, Mr. Carey. These best projects that you guys are doing in Lancaster then, do those storage systems have, are they, I mean, clearly they're tied into LES. Do they have a public-private?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
And I'm not privy to all the negotiations.
I'm just trying to wrap my head how this is different maybe than what the big ones we're talking about. And I think the overall concern is, this is what we saw from last year's bill, is big companies come in, build these huge storage units, they buy our power cheap at midnight or 2 a.m., they store it, and then they sell it back at a profit, and it goes to California or whatever, and we are a 100% public power state, and it's like, if you're gonna come in and do that, we're gonna get it, because we're 100% public power, and my bill is gonna go down, her bill is gonna go down, you know what I'm saying? I think that's the whole thing here. So I'm just kind of trying to wrap my head around how, I mean, yours are a little smaller projects, and like how that works, but I'll dig into it after, so, thank you.
Senator Rabel.
I guess a sort of a follow-up to Senator Hughes' question, are these different energy storage projects, are they dealing directly with the Southwest Power Pool in determining like, hey, we'll dump this load whenever you have a demand for it, or, you know, is that what they're doing?
So our discussions with the applicants for these projects, as well as our own research, the Southwest Power Pool certainly is, I mean, that is the entity where our power in this region is bought and sold and is provided. We've also had good conversations that, yes, certainly LES here for Lincoln and Lancaster County is the provider of that energy here locally. That all of that is on the table. That is our understanding. And then that's where those negotiations. But again, for our purposes, that's a private discussion, private negotiation.
Between the energy company and LES, right?
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Senator Klaus.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. I got a question on when talking about this. Have you zoned out renewable energy in Lancaster County, like turbines and solar and all those things?
No, not at all.
Not at all? Okay.
I can't hear, what was the?
Asked if they zoned out and prevent wind and solar and those other renewable energy.
Zoning regulations.
No, we have not zoned them out. In fact, we have 2 significant sized solar projects that are approved.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, I think you can tell from listening to us that you guys are way ahead of the curve on these issues from, where we're coming from. But, you're against 1010 for a different reason than the attorney for the developers, and you don't like the loss of local control, and he doesn't like the limits on his marketability of his project, what he can use it for. So are those opposing interests, or are they just 2 negative interests that are not in conflict?
I don't think they're opposing interests. I think from our perspective at the local level, and then from my perspective from a planning and zoning way of thinking about how these projects have come through and get the approval that they need, I think our interest is that the projects have the opportunity to be successful, however that would happen.
And when you say that you could approve it locally and then the state would say no, who is the state? The Power Review Board?
That's our understanding, yes. The potential is there of that. And
So
not precluding
you
it
want
from.
to develop these projects without going to the Power Review Board?
They are already.
I would say that right now is a kind of the condition that we're dealing with right now. Now, if that's something that gets worked out as part of this bill, we certainly will track that and we'll maybe have a comment on that. But our interest is making sure that projects can still happen in our county and in other counties throughout the state. to be successful. That's really the point.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Very much for your testimony. Any other opposition to LB 1010? Opposition to LB 1010?
Yes, hold on just a second.
Welcome.
Thank you, Senator. Good afternoon, Senator Moser. I guess I'm not sure what your title is at this point.
Vice Chair.
Don't worry about the salutation, just get on with it.
Thank you, Senator, and members of the committee. My name's Ken Winston, K-E-N-W-I-N-S-T-O-N, and similar to Mr. Levy's comments, the Nebraska Sierra Club is appearing in opposition to LB 1010 in its current form, and we do support the creation of regulatory framework for the development of battery energy storage systems. And we also have a long record of supporting public power in this state, as witnessed by testimony last week before this committee. But we're concerned that the current provisions of LB 1010 would hinder development of battery storage systems. And battery storage is it's an important part of a 21st century energy portfolio. They can improve reliability and resilience and make renewable energy more effective by filling gaps when they're not generating electricity. And I just came across a study this afternoon, and I didn't have a chance to make copies for everybody, but this study indicates that the authors of this study believe that energy storage deployment in the Southwest Power Pool between now and 2035 could save our customers $2.2 billion over the next 10 years. And that would be a big deal. So it also could be a way of saving money for our customers.
And what's the reference of the evidence you're offering?
This is done by the American Clean Power Association. I will make a copy and I will send it.
Give it to the clerk.
Yeah.
We'd like to have it.
Yeah, if you guys want to make copies of it. And I've not had a chance to read the report, but I just thought I'd share that information because I thought that's something relevant to our conversation today.
Okay, thank you.
And then as I was trying to research things and looking things up on Google but based upon what I could find this afternoon, Nebraska has very little battery energy storage at the present time. Now, there's some projects that are in development. Mr. Carey talked about some, Mr. Levy talked about some, Mr. Underwood talked about some. So there's a bunch of them that are in development. Right now, I think we may be under 10 megawatts in the whole state of battery energy storage that's currently operational, if I can believe the information that I read. In contrast, Texas has 11,000 megawatts, 11 gigawatts, and California has 17 gigawatts of battery energy storage. So we're kind of behind in the curve on this. So I mean, I'm not saying we should rush headlong into it, but it appears that other people are doing it and doing it successfully. And the Southwest Power Pool currently is projected to have 10 gigawatts within the next 10 years, or within the next 5 years, by 2030. So, and we're concerned that the provisions of 1010 would hinder the development. And I know there's been a lot of talk about what happened in 2016. I was a staff person in the legislature at that time, so I remember vividly the conversations about that. And at that time, we had, there were lots of barriers to renewable energy development. I think there might have been maybe 300 megawatts in the whole state at that time of renewable energy development. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was in the hundreds of megawatts. Now we have 3,500 megawatts. The passage of LB 824 in 2016 really opened up the market for renewable energy development. And we'd like to see the same kind of thing happen with battery energy storage. And I guess just to close, and there's already been talk about the taxes that these generate and the economic benefits that can be provided with renewable energy. But I guess it's my understanding there's some negotiations that are going on. And what we'd like to see would be that those negotiations bear fruit, that between the folks in public power and the folks who are representing developers, that they are able to work out an agreement so that we can have a regulatory framework for battery energy storage that will spur development of battery energy storage in the state of Nebraska. Thank you.
All right. Questions for the testifier? Senator Hughes.
Thank you, Vice Mulder. Thanks for coming in, Mr. Winston. Can you verbalize exactly what provisions in this that you feel are onerous? Or, because what I see this bill doing is that it is making it clear to outside industry that you can come in, and that's, I mean, we've seen nothing because we are the only state that is 100% public power. And we do have in statute that if, and you could, I think battery is a type, it's not generating power, but it's storing, it's kind of like generation, different, but
Sure.
that potentially if you build something, our public power can just take it. That's the eminent domain piece. So to me, this is paving the way to make it clear for everyone that they can come. So I guess what in it are you saying is not good, and does that make sense?
I think that, well, obviously, Mr. Levy's already testified, but I think he's.
Well, and everybody has their angle. So Mr. Levy has an angle too.
I guess I'm just going to say, Mr. Levy is more of an expert in this area than I am.
You
so-
just want it clear for people that it works for businesses to do that and,
Right,
and
but,
get more back.
but there are some barriers that I think that having a lifetime of entity contract, that, to my understanding, that is a barrier. That if they have to sign a contract that says, for the entire lifetime of this project, we're going to sell you this power. And I believe that's what it says.
I don't recall that, but yes, keep going. So that's one. That
So
you're concerned
that's
with.
one. And I think there's some I don't know how onerous the aspect of going to the Power Review Board. Mr. Levy appeared to believe that would not be a problem. So, but definitely having to have a contract before you go to the Power Review Board, I think that is also an issue. But having the length of the contract for the length of time of the project, I know that's an obstacle to developers. And as I said, I do not represent developers, and I don't want to act as though I'm an
I just think
expert on
it's a
that.
balancing act between protecting our state and a good thing going here. And, you're right. I mean, that's what we're trying to thread the
Absolutely,
needle with, so.
and I completely agree with that statement.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Any other opponents for LB 1010? Okay, are there any to testify in the neutral on LB 1010?
Here we go.
Good afternoon. Acting Chair Mosher, members of the Natural Resources Committee. For the record, my name is Shelley, S-H-E-L-L-E-Y, Sailing Zart, S as in Sam, A-H-L-I-N-G--Z-A-R-T. I'm Vice President and General Counsel for Lincoln Electric System, the municipal electric utility serving Lincoln and the surrounding area. We are here today testifying neutral on LB 1010. The first thing I'd like to do is thank Senator Brandt and Senator Pocup for the efforts they have made over the last few weeks to try to bring everybody together and find a reasonable compromise on this bill. I think there might be still room for that. We're coming at this from maybe a little bit different perspective. I testified, I think, on the bill last year, and I told you that there was a lot we didn't know, and there were a lot of answers we were trying to get from SPP as to how they were going to treat these very large battery storage systems. And we have all been working with SPP trying to get answers to that. So I'm going to speak today on behalf of Lincoln Electric System and the discussions we have had with SPP, and others might be asking other questions, and there might be some things that we haven't thought about yet, but based on the discussions we have had with them, we have a better comfort level than we did when I was sitting here a year ago. They have made pretty clear to us that they are going to treat these at the wholesale level as a wholesale transaction. What does that mean for us? It means that we don't have to go out and find the capacity and the resources to cover that load when they're charging. SPP will handle that. Yes, there are concerns, Senator Hughes, you mentioned about when they charge. It's our understanding with SPP dispatching that, that's going to alleviate some, maybe not all of that concern. There's a market monitoring unit at SPP that our expectation will be looking at those things. But this is all pretty new. These really large battery storage things are pretty new. There's a lot for us to learn. I will tell you, the one thing we want that isn't in the bill and isn't in the amendment is a sunset provision. Because this is going to change a lot, and a sunset simply means it gives us comfort that we're proactively going to come back in a few years and have the opportunity, if we have discovered that, oh, there are major impacts to our system or there are major cost shifts to our customers, there's more of a proactive thing that we're going to come back and have that discussion. So we'd really like to see a sunset. Beyond that, I think we've got a better comfort level. Developers, the battery storage developers are willing to go to the Power Review Board. That's pretty significant. There's a process at the Power Review Board. We can intervene, we can protest, we can bring concerns if there are impacts to our systems. But at the end of the day, yeah, there's a lot we don't know about these, but it's a new tool in the toolbox. When we look back at Winter Storm Uri, or even a couple weeks ago at Winter Storm Fern, sometimes even if you don't use it, kind of nice to know you might have that to rely on. But yes, this is different. It's going to change the way we operate and look at things. But so are other things like nuclear power and other stuff we've looked at. So from our standpoint, we're trying to embrace a new tool in our toolbox and figure out how to do that. But there's that caveat I told you about. This is based on our understanding, and there's that fear of the unknown. We don't know what we don't know yet. So we want to kind of keep our powder dry a little bit and know that we're going to be able to keep having a discussion if some of those impacts make themselves known. With that, that's kind of the primary thing I wanted to do. Again, thanks to Senator Brandt and Senator Prokop for continuing this discussion, and I hope we can keep this going after the hearing. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Sure. Senator?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Stillings-Zart. Can you tell us, with the projects in Lancaster County, are they dealing directly with SPP, or do they have a power purchase agreement with LES? And you mentioned selling at
I can
wholesale?
sort of address that, Senator Raybould. I can tell you a little what I know and what I don't know. So let's start. Somebody had referenced an LES project. LES has a very small 3-megawatt battery storage project which is connected to our microgrid. It's down here in the Haymarket. The microgrid simply, it's connected to our total grid all the time, but if we get in a situation where we need to isolate and just be able to power the downtown area, we can sort of isolate that and do that. And the battery storage is behind the meter. It allows us to back up just that microgrid. It's not connected to the SPP. So, and it's very small. These large ones, what I can tell you is we do not have a power purchase agreement with any of the large battery storage projects in the area. We have talked with 3 developers. We have 2 generation interconnection agreements, which I'll describe in a second, with 2 of them, and we're working on a 3rd one. So a GIA, a generation interconnection agreement, is required through our tariff with SPP. It's a 3-way agreement between whoever the energy developer is, the local utility, and SPP. And it's designed it's a study and it's an analysis to take a look at impacts, how you physically interconnect to the grid, any upgrades that are necessary, any impacts. We get compensated for that. So there's a whole analysis that goes on. We do those studies, we enter into those agreements, but we get compensated if there are any upgrades that need to be done. That is literally just governing the physical interconnection to the grid. That doesn't have to do with purchasing the output of the battery storage. And no, we don't have any PPAs with any of those developers. We aren't in any discussions with any of them. I'm sure they would like that, but we aren't currently in any discussions for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Senator.
So during these discussions, you've never had to have the Power Review Board engaged with any of the approval process or oversight?
Not for the generation interconnection agreement because they aren't generating anything yet. Okay. Before they can construct and build the storage, they would have to go to the Power Review Board for these standalone, what we call merchant battery systems that are going to connect directly into the Southwest Power Pool. There are others, I can't remember who mentioned it, but there are others that would be associated under this bill that are connected to privately developed renewable generation resources, and there's a provision for that in statute now.
So I know Mr. Carey raised the concern that, you know, they have worked out all these negotiations and agreements. The Lancaster County Board has already approved the zoning, and then it goes to the Power Review Board, and what if the Power Review Board says no?
Yeah, and they could. So it's no different than if we were going to construct a new generation facility. You know, we're going to go through and we're going to get our permitting, we're going to talk to M Parks, and we're going to go through all the things we have to go through before we get there, because we need to go through the criteria with the Power Review Board, which are public convenience and necessity, most economically feasible project for the need, and no duplication of facilities. So we're going to do all of those things and get all those things in place to present to the Power Review Board. But we can't construct that plant until they say yes. And if they say no, then you can either appeal that decision or go back and figure out how to rework your application.
Okay, so help me understand why we even need LB 1010.
Well, that's a great question. I should have hit that on my direct. So right now, you heard somebody mention a guidance document. The Power Review Board currently has a guidance document that governs energy storage, because energy storage is not clearly addressed in statute. You also heard that there's at least one utility in the state that believes they're illegal under the statute. I don't subscribe to that position, but I think the statute is sort of silent. Energy storage is kind of an interesting one because it can both generate and then it discharges. So it's unique in its characteristics, and we've never had it in the state. But now we're in a situation where the Power Review Board has issued their guidance document, which does talk about how that can move forward. There's a question as to the legal status of that. So you could either end up fighting that court, or we could codify it. We think it's best to codify it and get it in statute, and let's be clear about what the rules are going to be on how it's approved and how it moves forward. So that's the primary reason that we're doing that, rather than continuing under a guidance document. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did, so thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Others to testify in the neutral? While he's preparing, we had one online proponent, 3 online opponents, no neutral and no ADA testimony. Welcome.
Senator Mosier, members of the committee. My name is Tim Texel, T-I-M, last name T-E-X-E-L, and I am the Executive Director and General Counsel for the Nebraska Power Review Board. Again, I think I'm batting cleanup here, so I will get all the questions that nobody else answered fully. As you know, the Power Review Board is a state agency with primary jurisdiction over electric suppliers in Nebraska. And the board is responsible for approving generation and most transmission facilities, certainly outside of a utility service territory. There is some uncertainty, as you heard, with where ESRs or BESSs fall into that. The Power Review Board is neutral, and the board normally doesn't take a position, as you've heard me before say, on policy issues. But the board currently believes, under the guidance document 14 you've heard about, that the board can accept applications from private developers to build generation transmission facilities and energy storage resource facilities. The board determined that in that guidance document 14, but it's only a guidance document. So where does that stand legally? As Ms. Shelley St. Lizard said, where do we stand on that? I think one issue with the private developers is nobody wants to be the canary in the coal mine and be the first one in and see, you know, do they have to take it to the Court of Appeals and Supreme Court after our decision or something like that? Nobody really wants to put the money and time and effort into being first to break that ground. So the legislation would address that. I think that LB 1010 is largely an attempt to mirror what's in the guidance document. So it does, I think, do what we already believe we can currently do, at least in our interpretation. You've heard a lot of other issues, but I do have 2 that are more technical issues that I wanted to bring up. One is on page 10, lines 17 to 18. It says that Such application shall include a written notice that demonstrates to the board that, and then it lists out, I think, 4 criteria that have to be met. As written, it only makes the applicant provide a written notice. And I'm not sure why the board would make specific findings based on what notice was provided, as opposed to make a finding based on the evidence. So what I would think makes more sense is put on the evidence before us, and then we make a finding on it, not just give us a notice and we make a finding that the notice was provided to us. That seems a very, very odd process to me. The sentence currently reads, such application shall demonstrate the following as part of the application. I think it makes more sense to put it that way. I mean, currently it does not say that. Such application shall demonstrate the following as part of the application, and that's what I would recommend. It more closely matches the current standard review that we use, where an entity can come to us, file an application, and go through that process, and then we can go from there. It makes more sense for an applicant to prove to the board the existence of factors A through D, like I mentioned. And they can provide documents. I don't think it would make it a whole lot more onerous or difficult, but providing just a notice is very simple, but it's very odd why we would do that in a hearing type of procedure. Then on page 11, lines 1 through 9, which is subsection small c, as it's written, this subsection gives the local public power utility holding the service territory rights, or the one to which they own the transmission system that the project will interconnect with. Those 2 entities, I do agree with Mr. Levy's characterization that would give them a veto power to stop any project. Because if they don't have those entities giving a consent to us, then the project can't come to us. Because that's one of the criteria that we have a consent from those 2 public power entities. That seems like a pretty onerous procedure to me. Our normal procedure is an entity like that, if they don't consent, we can still get the application, and then the other entity can intervene and show us why we should disapprove it. The applicant can show why they should. Here, it just gives a veto power to one side. It seems a little one-sided to me. As always, the policy is up to the legislature, but that seems to give all control and no due process to one side, so that's why I bring it up. Ultimately, of course, it is your decision, but I wanted to bring that up as an issue in this particular bill as it's currently written. So I would like to say that I do appreciate Senator Brandt addressing this issue. I think there's a lot of uncertainty. Senator Raybold, you asked one question very early on about what grounds the Power Review Board can disapprove a project on. I think, my time is up. Can I finish?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Okay. But the criteria we have is it meets the public convenience necessity, that the applicant can most economically and feasibly supply the power resulting from the project, and it doesn't duplicate existing facilities. So that would be the easy answer, is we find one of those things isn't met. You know, the public convenience necessity, we don't need this, there's not enough load growth, things like that. Well, that's not true right now, but that would be the type of thing, or we could say it duplicates the current project. We've done that on at least one transmission line where we said to build this one would duplicate it. There's excess capacity on another one, and you can use that and pay a wheeling fee to the other utilities. So that would be a couple of examples. There's probably a myriad of examples I could come up with, but those are the types of things we could approve or disapprove a project based on in one of those criteria.
Okay, let's see if there are other questions. Senator Hughes.
Thank you, Vice Chair Moser. Thanks for coming in, Mr. Texel. So then go back to, we had someone from Lancaster County Board here that is concerned, believes in local control. They've locally approved some of these smaller storage projects. But I look at what the Power Review Board, you're looking at the whole of Nebraska. If we just let every county do whatever and go right into the Southwest Power Pool, but they'd still have to come to you, don't they, before they go into that?
Yeah, I don't
I don't know.
completely agree with the characterization Lancaster County had said,
Yeah.
because I think their view is this changes a lot.
It shouldn't,
To
it doesn't,
me-
because they're still coming to you.
Well, this is what we believe we currently have the authority to do.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's changing anything, but
I
it
don't
does
think so
ensconce in statute what we believe we have the power to do, and the private entities know the answer, which I think, as Mr. Levy said, is important for developers who have institutional money saying, now we know where we stand. That leaves the eminent domain issue out there. But this doesn't actually change unless you think that it's illegal. Like, you know, one utility believes you can't build in Nebraska as a private entity. I guess according to that, Lancaster County could point to that and say it's illegal and this is a major change.
Yeah.
So I guess it depends on your perspective a little bit. To me, it's not.
Okay, yeah, I agree. Okay, thank you.
Senator Rabel.
Thank you very much. I know that Mr. Levy brought up eminent domain protection is sought. What does this bill do? It doesn't address that, or does it?
Well, it does mention, at the beginning of the bill, it does mention that ESRs are included in what I believe public utilities have the power of eminent domain over to exercise it. Because I think on in 70-670, it's on page 2, they specifically on line 8, they add storage to what they can use eminent domain on. So as I read that, this would clarify that the utilities could use it on an ESR project. I think arguably they could now, but this would clarify that. And my understanding is the private entities have a concern over that.
That's right, that would be a deterrent to investors to not have that
I
protection.
think it'd be hard to say it wouldn't. The institution, my understanding is the institutional investors don't, they might be able to win, but they don't want to put the money into something that might get taken away. They don't, that's not what they do, is get into a fight over that. They want to know they can get it built and make the money. It might be a risk to come to us, but that's always true for every permit. Lancaster County Board, us, anywhere else. But the eminent domain, they could have it taken away after they build it. So that's not something they want to put a lot of money into. So that's my understanding. That's not my side of things, but that it's usually a deterrent, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else testifying in a neutral position? Seeing none, Senator Brandt, you are welcome to close.
First of all, I'd like to thank all the testifiers. There was value in all the testimony to make this a better bill. On the proponents, Mr. Underwood from OPPD stated that probably the largest battery so far being built by Public Power would be 170 megawatt next year in Pierce County. And then I forgot to mention that down where I live, just south of where I live, I think NPPD is putting in a 50 meg, or NextEra is putting in a 50 meg battery down there in the wind farm. But he did state that the SPP rules would govern. On the opponents, Mr. Levy, you know, he wants to encourage private investment. I think we want to encourage private investment. We don't want to discourage private investment, but we just want to set guidelines to do that correctly. The discussion of eminent domain kind of went all over the place. My opinion on how this is written, and they may agree or they may disagree, is when public power was created in Nebraska in the 30s and finally implemented in the 40s, prior to that, it was private power. And so we had to convert private to public, and maybe you didn't want to sell your private power company. So they gave public power the right to take your private power company by the right of eminent domain. That's why Nebraska is a 100% public power state, and that's the card that our public power holds in the state of Nebraska, bar none. So they've got eminent domain on a lot of stuff. This is not unusual. What's unusual is when they let the renewables, I believe in 2010 was mentioned, sell some of their power outside of the state of Nebraska, that they didn't have to produce just for a Nebraska utility, and that allowed a great expansion on solar and wind in the state of Nebraska. And like it, hate it, but that was a driver on that. It seems like the private investment would like to use that model, and power would like to use the existing model. And we've had several meetings on this. The private investment hates eminent domain. Let's just be honest here. We are willing to modify that to the point that that is out, providing there is an adequate power purchase agreement, and that's kind of our sticking point at the moment, along with some things like a sunset provision and things like that. We are not that far apart if everybody wants to get together on this. If this bill ultimately doesn't go forward, what we've got in statutes, what we've got in statute. But it isn't going to allow for an explosion of private investment in the state of Nebraska. Why do they want to come here? Because we've got reliable, low-cost power. It would be a moneymaker for them, and it should be a benefit for the ratepayers of the state. And I believe that's what this bill is trying to protect. When Mr. Carey from Lincoln Lancaster Planning and Zoning came up, I can see the advantage for a county. Look at those numbers. Man, there's a lot of taxation here. This is really a good thing for that. But a county planning and zoning should not dictate electrical power in the state of Nebraska. The Power Review Board and our public power should be the last say on whether a battery is getting built out there, working with our planning and zoning out there. Okay, and then Mr. Texel had some recommended changes that we're certainly open to looking at. And that's about all the notes I've got. So if you've got any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Okay, see, are there any questions? Seeing none, that will close the hearing on LB 1010. We'll wait just a second.
Sure. You don't have to wait, it's just a shell bill.
Makes my head hurt.
It's just a lot, this stuff is a lot.
Yeah?
But your openings are always so riveting.
This one's from the hip, buddy.
Wait, nobody's staying for this bill?
Oh, I can do better than this. You know me.
You have an endless capacity for stirring up trouble. Kudos to
I
you.
walked in that other hearing and Hanson was cleaning his up. And I cleared the room over there. I come back here.
Sorry I didn't make it over to you guys' table more. I got kind of stuck. I got there so late and. Yeah. Okay.
Bruce.
All right.
Everybody out.
No, not yet. We still have a bit.
I know, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Now it.
Okay, Senator Brandt, you're welcome to open on 1220.
LB 1220 is the shell bill for the Natural Resources Committee. The purpose of a shell bill is if something would happen after bill introduction and we need a vehicle, this baby is it. What it actually is Travis pulled some obsolete statute out and we changed a may to a shall. That is it.
Yay.
It's a safety valve.
Yeah.
The commission
Any
shall.
questions from
No, do you waive closing?
any?
Okay.
Are you going to be here to close?
Yes, I'll stay to close. Better ask if there's any testifying.
Are there any proponents? Any opponents? Anyone in the neutral could? Senator Brandt,
Quickest hearing ever, 1 minute. That
That
was the least boring
Yay.
bill in this.
For the record,
Oh no, how many online?
going back to 1010, I should have mentioned this earlier.
He did read that.
He did do that,
Yeah,
okay.
he
On
did
this
read
one,
the
there were
first
no proponents, no opponents, no one in the neutral, and no ADA testimony.
Okay, now we're going to go into exec.
1 second.
Okay. this.